going to talk to you about the second part of the Carnival Project, which is the big part. It's a major grade. We have a lot of information we got to cover. So in the first part, we talked about just going through and getting the meats and the potatoes, the nuts and bolts about actually creating a carnival game. We talked about flipping a coin and the probability of it, rolling one dice, find the probability of it, drawing cards out of a deck and finding the probability of those. And then we conducted experiments and saw how they compared to what we could calculate based on what we know and the experiment of doing it. And we can see that sometimes they're different. Sometimes they're pretty similar and sometimes they're different. But this Carnival Project gets into real detail about what we're discussing. So the purpose of the project is to create a playable carnival game that can be used to calculate experimental and theoretical probabilities of winning prizes and to calculate the expected expenses, revenue, and profit of playing your game. Steps described below will need to be completed to fulfill the requirements of this project. The project counts for a major grade for this coming 6 weeks, the third marking period. There's two major grades for this particular project. There's two parts of the project. The first part we discussed in the first video, and you're going to turn that in. And the second part is a presentation, okay? So you'll choose your carnival game. That's step one. It's going to involve coin flips, dice rolls, card draws, and involves probability to win prizes. So you have to calculate the theoretical probability of each in a series of these events. And I'll go into detail in that in just a minute. But here's some suggestions for carnival games. You don't have to use one of these ideas, but your game should include two different types of random draws, whether it's a coin flip or a two coin flip, a spinner, dice roll, a pull from a card deck, whatever. But at least two different levels of prizes need to be included, a small and a big prize. So here's an example of what we could do. Roll a dice and flip a coin. If the coin is heads and the dice is even, the player wins a big prize. If the coin is heads and the dice is odd, the player wins a smaller prize. Otherwise, the player wins nothing. You can calculate theoretically what those probabilities would be. Then you would conduct an experiment where you would find 50 rolls or 50 flips of those coins to see how you simulate how a customer would actually do if you had 50 people play the game. Okay, so keep going. Draw a card and spin a spinner. If the card is a face card, ace, king, queen, or jack, which is there's 4 of each suit, and there's 4 suits, so there's 16 out of 52 cards. And the spinner lands on green, which is if you have a 4-piece spinner, that's 1/4. The player wins a grand prize. The card is face card and the spinner lands on any other color, the player wins a small prize. So literally, you win a prize as long as you get a face card. Your written proposal should describe your carnival game and a basic summary of the rules of your game that will determine how the player wins a prize for your game. Be sure to include the cost to play the game and the cost to buy the prizes to give away. That's important. Cost to play the game is going to be your revenue. Cost to buy the prizes is going to be your expenses. And of course, the profit is the difference between the two. Build and simulate a carnival game and create the rules of play and gather data. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to build a game. You're going to simulate it. So you're going to create the rules that govern how your game is played and how players win prizes. Well, it'll be some combination of the things that you do on your game. You're required to gather data from at least 50 people who play or from a simulation, which of course will simulate. So no one's going to play your game unless you do it at home. So you can calculate the experimental probabilities of the various outcomes of your game. Notice experimental probability is actually what happens when you simulate the game. Theoretical is what you can calculate from just what you know using models of the actual game. So we're going to calculate empirical and theoretical probabilities. Empirical evidence or empirical data is simply the information you gain from the experience of gameplay. So you need to calculate theoretical probabilities of the various outcomes from your game using the probability rules we've been studying. In addition, calculate the empirical probabilities of various outcomes of your game using the results gathered from having at least 50 players or simulations of your game. And you'll need to record the results of these 50 player simulations in a table to serve as documentation. You can put this table on your slideshow. We'll discuss that in a minute. As always, justification and explanation should be provided for all numbers and calculations. So step 4, calculate expenses, revenue, and profit. You need to calculate the expected profit from your game if 100 people were to play your game. So if it costs a certain amount to play your game, you multiply that by 100 and that gives you your revenue. Okay? You find out how many people from probability would win the game, both theoretically and experimentally, and find out how much it would cost to give away prizes for that. And you find the difference between your revenue and your expenses to find your profit. So, the cost of prizes and the expected number of prizes that will be won, the amount you'll charge to play your game if it were a true carnival. Justification explanation must be provided for all numbers and calculations. All right, step 5. Prepare a Google Slides presentation. Yes, you need to prepare a slides presentation that will complement an 8 to 10 minute oral presentation video to be produced by you. Individual project. It's an individual project. You have to do this yourself. Google Slides presentation should include slides on the following information. Details of your carnival game. Okay, that includes rules of play, expected expenses, expected revenue, expected profit for each game, and the theoretical and empirical probabilities for your outcomes. That means you're going to have to find expected probabilities based on theoretical and experimental data. So prepare an oral presentation video. It's expected to be a formal and professional presentation to the class, or you can do it on video and submit it digitally. You should prepare an oral presentation that needs to last 8 to 10 minutes. Your Google Slides will obviously be used to complement your oral presentation. In addition, you can have an additional relevant information to use to complement your oral presentation, or your presentation displayed on poster board, presentation paper, or a display board. You need to educate the class on the following aspects of your carnival game: rules of play, expected expenses, expected revenue, expected profit, theoretical and empirical probabilities. In addition, you'll need to discuss the difference between theoretical and empirical probabilities. And in addition, you'll need to discuss the difference between your theoretical and empirical probabilities, why you think a carnival would be interested in using your game, learning experience you may have gained along the way, and your grade on this part of the project will consist of points earned on the Google Slides and the overall presentation. And at the end of this, we're going to talk about the rubric. The rubric will tell us exactly what you need. If you look at a question and you need to answer it, I would suggest you make a slide on that answer. So we're looking at graded criteria, and they range from excellent, good, acceptable, needs, and unacceptable. We tell you exactly how many points you'll get, regardless of what score you get on that particular question. So are the rules clear? Are there multiple ways to win different levels of prizes? Okay. So if you only have one prize, you've not followed the directions. There's supposed to be 2 prizes, 2 prize levels. Are the rules clear? Is it clear to a person playing the game that how to win a prize? Okay. And are the rules neatly presented? Okay. So here's the thing. If you're making a game, you're going to have to present your game. So one of your slides should be the rules of the game. All right. Expected expenses, revenue, and profit based on theoretical probability. So this is based on what you can calculate just on a model of your game, not from the experience of playing it, but just from the model of your game. Are expenses of the game summarized and explained? Are revenues expected from the game summarized and explained? And is the expected profit correctly calculated if 100 people play your game? So here's the thing. Theoretically, how many people would win if 100 people play? The big prize and the small prize. How much would that cost the person that owns the game? How much revenue would you gain if 100 people play the game? The profit would be the expenses expected subtracted from the revenue expected. So that would be your expected profit based on theoretical probability. All right, theoretical probability, empirical probability. This is 20 points. Are the theoretical probabilities calculated correctly and fully supported? And was there adequate data gathered to calculate empirical probabilities? Okay, so you should collect at least 50 pieces of data, 50 ways to play the game. All right, Google slide presentations worth 15 points. Does your slides include all required information in a way that will support your oral presentation? Okay, let's answer this. So, is it neat and professional in appearance? Okay, Google Slides only worth 15 points. Look, the oral presentation is 25 points. So accurately describing the game and the rules of play needs to be done well. The theoretical and empirical probabilities needs to be done really well. Expected expenses, revenue, profit based on both probabilities that needs to be done really well. And the difference between the two probabilities needs to be done really well. And the two profits. You need to understand there's two probabilities. There's experimental and there's theoretical. And there's two profits. Profit based on theory and profit based on the experience of simulated gameplay. And why would a carnival be interested in your game? So this is based on facts, okay? Not on opinions. So notice that second question. Is your answer based on facts or opinions? It's very important to understand that you've collected data, okay? Theory is just theory. That doesn't give us the basis for fact, okay? Empirical data gives us facts. It gives us hard, clear evidence that it's true. Now, you can get up to 10 bonus points by telling us what your takeaways from the project. What did you learn from the project? Did you gain something from it? You probably will, and it probably is best to make a whole slide based on your learning experiences, okay? So I'm going to leave this to you, folks. This is not a hard project. It seems hard, but it's all spelled out for you. Every detail is spelled out for you here, okay? And, of course, I'm always available, and Mr. Hicks is always available if you need help and I'm not available. So best of luck on this. Getting ready for Turkey Days coming up, y'all. I'm ready. I don't know about you. In the meantime, y'all, be blessed. Be a blessing.